So the last person in your band that should say the song is boring is the bass player. If they ever say that, show them the sheet music or the tab to the tune and say, get to work. Hey everybody, Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I remember some things really well in my past. One thing I will never forget is when my teenage metal band ended and I was super depressed. And it took a little while, but eventually I felt like I wanted to get back on stage, get back to playing, and I needed to make some money. So when my friends asked me to join this country rock band, I was hesitant at first, but then I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? Just because I don't love the music they play doesn't mean that I shouldn't at least give it a try. Maybe I'll learn something, and I know they gig a lot, so I think I can make some money on the side too. All of a sudden I went from playing Metallica type music to Garth Brooks, Georgia Satellite, ZZ Top. It was like a whole nother world for me. And I remember distinctly when I saw on the set list, Keep Your Hands to Yourself.
Give me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
Because I grew up hearing that song all the time on our local classic rock station. And so it was basically baked into my DNA by then. So I kind of slopped through it when I learned it. You know, I know the song, I'll just kind of jam along when you play it. And so it took a lot of years before I finally did the song justice. And it's kind of sad because there are so many really cool details that I just sort of glossed over. So I want to make a list of the 10 details that I used to miss and that I see a lot of bands missing. Believe it or not, there are 10. Even in a song that seems so simple, you know, this is kind of my mantra for this series of videos that I've been doing. It seems easy on the surface, but as soon as you dig, you realize there's a lot more to the songs we might take for granted. The first one is something I often bring up with classic rock songs that people seem to maybe not play exactly right. A lot of bands use way too much distortion when it comes to starting the song. I hear this all the time.
Put your hands together now.
Kind of like Summer of '69, when it comes in, it's more of a tube-driven, ratty sound. There's not a lot of distortion. It's more of just an overdrive from pushing the tubes. So it's kind of like this tone. Hear that? That's not super fuzzy or distorted. You know, if you add too much distortion sometimes, you lose the power of the tone, and that can really happen in this song. And this is really apparent when the song starts, if they're playing the beginning correctly, which a lot of people don't seem to do, which is you have to choke this A chord. You play that for a while, then you ease up and you open it up. You see the dynamic buildup of that? Already, that's a detail that I used to miss. I used to just start off as loud as possible with a lot of distortion. It was kind of gross. As you play through the song, you're going to see how that tone benefits all the different parts, whether it's the lead part or some of the rhythm hits that you have to do. It all seems to sound way better, less saturated. Detail number 2 is the kick drum of the song. You know, if you watch my other videos that are like this, I'm a real stickler for the kick drum. A lot of that's because I've played drums my whole life, and I kind of have an ear for listening to what the kick drum's doing in the real tune. And so in this song, if you really want to play it authentically, which isn't the law, you know, you don't have to, but if you want to do it justice for the album, the kick drum doesn't actually start till the vocals come in.
I got a little change in my pocket going.
And what my band used to do is we used to kind of stretch the set a little bit because we, you know, didn't want to play as many songs. So we would just do the intro for like a minute. And the kick would come in right away on the 2 and 4. Didn't kick. And it was cool because it got the crowd into it and people started clapping, so it could be utilized in a really cool way live. There's this old video of Georgia Satellites playing it, and Dan Baird, the singer, is actually just talking for like a straight minute with the guitar going, and the drummer still doesn't come in until the verse starts.
Well, I got a little change in my pockets going.
So that's how true to it they stayed, at least at that concert. And then when the song comes in, it's almost like an AC/DC type thing. You have to stay true to the pattern for the most part to give it the right feel. So it's a kick drum, snare, 2 kick drums, and a snare. You know, there are other kicks thrown in once in a while, but that's the primary groove. I've seen people mess with it a little bit. They'll just do a single kick drum the whole time. That feels okay. But at one time I heard somebody play the 50s beat over the top of the song. It was weird. It was like kick, snare, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, snare. All of a sudden it turned into like an old Beatles tune or something. Detail 4 is something that if you go through on YouTube and look up cover bands playing this song, you'll see that a lot of them just mess the tempo up in a big way. So an easy thing to do, since it's more of a chill song and people kind of feel like they're taking a break when they're playing it, like I said, it's easy to slow it down too much.
I got a little change in my pocket, gonna change a light.
And so it kind of turns into like a sludge rock feel or something. Classic sludge rock, I guess. It's kind of cool, slower, but if the song keeps going like that, it just starts to drag. And no matter, how excited your crowd is, eventually they're going to feel the lack of energy. This song is one of those deceptive tunes that are actually faster than you might think it is. So it's kind of fun to play the track on your phone and then start the song, and you'd be like, oh, it's actually a lot more speedy than I expected. See, it's got a little bit of a drive to it. Now, don't make the mistake of going too fast, because then you lose the groove the other way.
Honey, I've been with you for the rest of my life.
It's funny because recently I saw a video of a band where the guitar player started it off too slow. Then the drummer's like, I'm going to fix this. And when he came in, he brought it up way too fast. For the next detail, I need to grab the bass. I'm trying to remember how the bass player played it back when I first started playing in the country rock band. During the solos, I think he went like this. That's kind of what he did. He just followed the chord progression and did that rhythm. And it worked at the time, but when you listen to the actual song, the bass line is bonkers. By the way, I have some drive on the bass today just so you can hear it. Usually I wouldn't have this much, buzz on it. But here's a closer version of what it's supposed to be for a certain part of the song. And then on the walk down, compare that to just riding the root notes. It's such a different feel when you do the actual bass line. So the last person in your band that should say the song is boring is the bass player. If they ever say that, show them the sheet music or the tab to the tune and say, get to work. One quick thing I almost forgot about the bass. The reason why it's important to follow the bass line a lot closer than a lot of people do is the walk-up parts. That's such a huge part of this song, to get each chord to go into each other the correct way. So all the chromatic walk-ups are necessary for this song to feel correct. Okay, back to guitar. I'm so glad I got this recently because a lot of the artists that I cover use this style of guitar, so I'm having fun with it. The next detail is missed by almost every single band. At least somebody in the band, one band member messes it up almost every time. And that's when you do the verse part, you're supposed to hang on the 5 chord until he says, she said, don't hand me no lines, and keep your hands to yourself. So the progression's kind of like this. That's when he says that epic part in the song. You see how I stayed on the E for 2 measures? But when the guitar solos start up, it changes. It goes from the 5 chord to the 4 chord to the 1 chord. The next detail is that since it's kind of a jammin' tune, a lot of guitar players like myself elect to just go off and solo and improvise during the solo parts. And I used to just kind of, wank off some pentatonic licks, do my best Kirk Hammett licks over the top of it, and it worked pretty well. But I wasn't doing some of the leads justice. So I beg you, even if you go crazy, by the way, one time I saw a guy do sweep arpeggios through one of the entire solos at the State Fair. It was ridiculous. It was cool, but it was just crazy. It wasn't until I started to honor the actual tune that I saw people kind of light up in the crowd, and my band looked at me like, whoa, that sounded great. I started adding some of these signature licks. You don't have to play the solo note for note, obviously, but I beg you, try this at least once. Throw in a few of these licks. Even just the... all these double stops sound so great. That's a huge part of the solos, by the way, the double stop. So you have this one. You have this double stop slide that he does later on. fits the music perfectly, almost like a ZZ Top solo. It's not the fanciest stuff, not the flashiest stuff, but it fits and it works for the music. This one's a classic. Isn't there just like this trashiness to it that's so wonderful? And then there is a little bit of a tricky chicken picking thing you could do as well. And then you can end it with... There's that double stop again, except it's an octave higher that time. So toss a few of those double stops in when you solo and watch the reaction you get. Speaking of double stops, detail 8 is something that is often missed as well. A lot of the times, even if a band has multiple guitar players, they play the verses like this.
Well, now I want real bad. Now I was about to stick it in.
Which is cool, you know, it's a huge part of the sound. But listen to the second verse after the double guitar solo they do.
See, I wanted her real bad, and I was about to give in. But that's when
The other guitar player is playing up hits. So instead of going like this, they're going something like that. I don't know if that's how they end it, but there's definitely the double stop hits going up like that. So it becomes this bouncing back and forth type thing. Then when they go up to D, so keep an ear out for that. It really adds to the second verse and it makes it stand out. It distinguishes it from the first one. Okay, time for some trivia for the next one. I love doing this. So when Dan Baird says, "She said, don't hand me no lines and keep your hands to yourself," what is happening with the vocals there? Is there a harmony? Is somebody harmonizing with him as he says that?
she said, don't have me no lies and keep your hands to yourself.
Choice B would be, is it another person singing in unison on that part? So it's like multiple voices singing that part together.
She said, don't have me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
Or C, is it just Dan Baird singing the one part? You probably guessed it. It's just the one part.
Give me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
That surprised me the first time I realized that. I listened to the original recording. It's like, oh, it's just his one voice doing this. That's because this song is so well written, it pulls you into wanting to sing along. That's why it's such a great crowd pleaser. A big thing to do is to have the crowd sing that part with you, which is really cool. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to see another person in the band sing along. Whether they harmonize or they just do it in unison, you feel compelled to sing along with this tune. Now, the 10th and final detail doesn't seem like a big thing until you do it and then stop doing it. It's going to feel like there's a huge hole, you know, there's something missing on this part now. It's during the solos, there's a time when the bass guitar and the guitar play something together, and it's this. So the guitars will be going off, right? And no matter what they're doing, you have to jump to that part because the bass player is doing it. And you have to match it. I talked about earlier how I used to just kind of go crazy and do pentatonic solos during this, and I never did that part. And when I finally tried to learn it the right way, I started throwing it in. So I'd be soloing, you know, and all of a sudden, threw that in. And the rest of the band kind of nodded like, cool. And then later on, the bass player started to follow me and go along with what I was doing. It sounded more like the album, and it was great. Later on, I ended up playing one show with this band, and the bass player did not do that part. So I didn't do it either because I thought it seemed weird for just me to do it because I was so used to the, you know, guitar and the bass going together. And it just sounded like wrong. You know, like I said, it just seemed like it had a gaping hole all of a sudden. It's like if there was a song with a signature drum fill that happened 4 times in the song and they didn't do it. Or if there was a lyric that the singer just didn't sing. That's how obvious it is after you play the lick if it's not there. Now, I'm pretty sure, like always, whenever I do a video like this, I'm going to get a lot of blowback from people that say, why would you play it exactly like the album? That's so lame. I do it my way and all that stuff. I agree with you. Like I said a lot in this video, I've played it my own way for a lot of my life. You know, it took me years and years before I finally added these details. And I only add them because I'm a huge music nerd and I like to do songs justice that I play. But I understand if you play it your way and it's, you know, awesome and the crowd loves it and everybody's happy, you know, who am I to say to change? But I think it's cool to put my voice out there and let people know, maybe people that don't realize they're missing some of these details, that it's possible to up your game, even with a song that you might take for granted. Okay, everyone, this was a ton of fun for me. I love making these kind of videos. I get to go down memory lane as well and think about all the fun times I've had playing these songs. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you at the next one. Bye-bye.